Yes, yes, sir.
Okay. So let's begin. In the last class, that is today's morning, we were talking about anti-defection law. And in anti-defection law, we have talked about some things, like we have talked about the introduction, that is the history part, how this law came into being, what was the need of this law. We have talked about the history of this law. We have talked about the need of this law. What is the need of this law? Now we have to talk about some of the provisions. Then we have to talk about process of disqualification, process of disqualification, disqualification under anti-defection law, process of disqualification of legislators under anti-defection law of legislators. Then we have to talk about rights of the speaker or chairperson with respect to anti-defection law. What are the rights of the speaker with respect to anti-defection law? Then we have to talk about the criticism or criticism of the conduct of the speaker. Then we have to talk about a very, you can say, prominent case, Kyoto Holohan versus Jashilu, 1993. So this case was of 1993, and this case is very important with respect to anti-defection law because Supreme Court made some important observations in this case. Then we have to talk about Supreme Court's recent observations with respect to anti-defection law. So this is the things. And then we have to talk about some reforms required under anti-defection law. So let's begin. So first we have to talk about the provisions, but let me reiterate it again. Let me reiterate what we have talked till now. We have talked the introductory part, that is the history, and we have talked about the need. So in short, tell me what was the need of this anti-defection law. Tell me the need of anti-defection law. Tell me two needs, 2 points about the need of anti-defection law. Why there was a need to have an anti-defection law. History and needs we have talked about. So tell me.
Prevent patching of each other legislator to from government in case of no political parties getting.
Right. Please don't tell. Write on in the comment box.
एक्चुअली राइट कैसे करेंगे सर, बहुत बड़ा है.
So let me tell you, the need was that
Hmm.
to prevent party hopping.
Prevent patching.
Party hopping.
Yes. And to prevent horse trading.
And to prevent horse trading, that is buying and selling
Yes.
of MLAs.
Horse trading.
And to maintain
Buy and sell.
that is ethical political behavior. Ethical political behavior of the MLAs. So these were the reasons or the need why we needed an anti-defection law. Okay, by which amendment this anti-defection law was added in the Constitution? What was the amendment? Which amendment was there to introduce anti-defection law?
(1985), sir.
Okay, 52nd Amendment. Yes, it was Constitutional Amendment Act 1985, and the Schedule 10 was added. 10th schedule was added. 10th schedule was added, and by the 52nd Constitutional Amendment Act, and this 10th schedule relates to anti-defection law. So these are some factual information that you have to remember, because these may be asked at any point of time. And this law had been in news for last 2 years, and UPSC has not asked a question on anti-defection law, but it may ask question at any point of time, even this year. So this year it becomes very important. One more thing we talked about in the need, we talked about section 8 clause 3 of Representatives of People's Act 1951, and this section 8 clause 3 is very important, and section 8 clause 4 that was declared unconstitutional or discriminatory, and it was set aside. Discriminatory, and it was set aside by the Supreme Court, in which case it was Lily Thomas versus Union of India. Lily Thomas versus Union of India, 2013. So in 2013, in Lily Thomas versus Union of India case, Supreme Court set aside this section 8 clause 4, saying that it is discriminatory and it violates some of the provision of free and fair election and ethics in the, you can say, parliament by the parliamentarians. And so this section 8 clause 4 that provided a 3-month window, that is 90 days window, to the indicted politicians to appeal against the decision of the lower court into the higher court, so that they could not be disqualified. So Supreme Court set aside this and declared it unconstitutional. So this was the thing that you have to remember. This case, Lily Thomas versus Union of India case, is very important. Then there are some other things that we will talk about when we will talk about electoral reforms. There are some other cases that we will talk about when we will talk about electoral reforms. Like we will talk about People's Union for Civil Liberties case 2014. Then we will talk about ADR case, Association of Democratic Reform case 2002. So Supreme Court has given some major you can say judgments in these cases, and along with Lily Thomas versus Union of India case. And Supreme Court has made some important observations that has proved to be a bedrock of electoral reforms and political democracy in India. So we will talk about these things, but just for the sake of anti-defection law, you have to remember this case only, that is Lily Thomas versus Union of India, and one more case, that is Kyoto Holohan versus Jashiru. So these things are there that we have to remember. Now let's come to our main discussion. So what we have to discuss now is the provisions of anti-defection law. So what are the provisions? Anti-defection law 1985. So what are the major provisions? And these provisions are for to disqualify a member of the house, any house, Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, State Legislative Assembly, State Legislative Council. Okay, so what are the provisions? The provisions, there are 3-4 major provisions. First provision is that if there is a legislator, and if he was elected, so an elected legislature, if an elected legislature resigns from the membership of his parent political party, His membership of the house also shall cease. He or she shall be disqualified. So he or she shall be disqualified from the membership of the house. So this is the first provision, that if an elected legislature resigns from the membership of his parent political party, that is the political party at which ticket, on whose ticket he contested the election, if he resigns from the membership of that political party, he or she shall be disqualified from the membership of the house also. So this is the first provision. For example, let me give you an example. Suppose Mr. X was there and Mr. X contested an election on the ticket of political party Y, political party A. So A was political party and Mr. X was the candidate, and he contested the election on the ticket of political party A, and he won the election. Subsequently, he won the election also. But after winning the election, Mr. X, he jumps on to another political party. He acquires the membership of another political party, that is Y. Suppose B political party is there. Suppose political party B is there. What he does, after winning the election on the party ticket of political party A, he jumps over and he resigns from the political membership of political party A, and he joins political party B. So his membership of the house also, that is his election will also be, you can say, disqualified, or he will be disqualified from the membership of the house also. Not only he will, as soon as he leaves the political party on whose ticket he was elected, his membership of the house shall also be ceased. That is, he will not be considered a member of the house of which house he was a member. So this is the first condition. Now let's come to the next provision. The next provision is regarding independent MLAs. If an independent member of a candidate of a house joins a political party after election, after election, his membership, he or she shall be disqualified. Shall stand disqualified. What do we mean by it? That if an independent member was there, you know that there are people who do not belong to any political party. They just contest the election, and even subsequently, if they get elected, they are called independent member of the house. Okay. So these independent members, suppose Mr. A was contested the election, but not on the ticket of any political party. He contested the election independently, and subsequently he won the election. Okay, and so he will be called an independent member of the house. But after winning the election, suppose he joins any political party, assume X, then if he, as soon as after getting elected, if he joins political party X, his membership of the house shall be ceased. So this is the second provision. Now let's talk about the third provision. The third provision is regarding, you can say, nominated member of the house. So suppose there are nominated members. So if a nominated member of a house joins a political party after 6 months of his nomination. After 6 months of his nomination to the house. You know that president and the governors nominate some members to the house. Okay. For example, president nominates members, two Anglo-Indian community members in Lok Sabha and 12 members to Rajya Sabha. In the same way, if you take the example of UP Legislative Assembly, then the governor nominates one member in Legislative Assembly and of Anglo-Indian community, and there are some members. I'm not recalling the exact data, but there are some members that are nominated in Legislative Council. So these nominated members, suppose they were nominated by the governor or by the president, and after getting nominated, after 6 months expiry of their nomination, they are joining a political party, then their nominated membership of the house shall be ceased. So nomination to the house. So this is the third provision. Now let's come to the fourth provision and the most important provision. What is the fourth provision? The fourth provision is called split and merge case. Case of split and merger. Split and merger. Split and merger. And in this, you have to remember that only split is not allowed. Only split is not allowed. But split and merge is allowed. Split and merger is allowed. Merger is allowed. What do you mean by these two provisions? Let me tell you. Suppose there was a political party A and it had 30 MLAs. Okay, first let me write the what is the exact provision. The exact provision is that if less than 2/3 of members of a political party if less than 2/3 of members of a political party resign from their parent political party, or you can say not resign, the exact term will be members of a political party decide, not resign, let me change the word, it is decide to split, that is go away, leave, that is leave their parent political party, and merge with another political party, they shall stand disqualified. They shall stand disqualified from the membership. They shall stand disqualified. So this is the thing. So if less than 2/3 elected members, let me tell, elected members, 2/3 elected members of a political party decide to split their parent political party and merge with another political party, they shall stand disqualified. But the remaining 1/3, not. But the remaining 1/3, shall be there. So let me write in short that yes, the remaining 1/3 who did not resign from the party, or who did not went on or left the party to join the another political party, they will continue to hold the membership of the house. But the less than 2/3, if less than 2/3 of members of a political party, they decide to split their parent political party and merge with another political party, they shall stand disqualified. But there is an exception. There is an exception. And what is the exception? Let me take a new slide and let me tell you. The exception is, if less or equal to, more or equal to, not less or equal to, more or equal to 2/3 of members of elected members, let me write correctly, elected members of a political party, decide to split from their political party, their parent political party, split from their parent political party, that is on whose ticket they contested the election and subsequently they won. So their parent political party and merge with another political party, then their membership they shall continue to be the member. They shall continue to be member. It means they shall not be disqualified. They shall not be disqualified from the membership of the house. 1 minute. They shall not be disqualified. Because this will now become a case of split and merger. So if more than or equal to 2/3 of the members of a house, members of a political party, elected members of a political party, they decide to split from their original political party and merge with the you can say another political party, then they are allowed and they shall not be disqualified from the membership of the house. For example, let me give you a real-time example. What happened in Arunachal Pradesh? You know that in Arunachal Pradesh, the total seats in the house is 36, and out of these 36, Congress had got nearly 18 seats. Okay, but what happened later, that more than 12 members of the Congress political party, they split from their parent Indian National Congress and they merged with another political party, NPP, and this split faction, it formed the government, and Kalikopool became the, you can say, the chief minister of Arunachal Pradesh. And so this case was a classic example of, and these 12 members that splitted from the political party, they were not disqualified because 12 is equal to 2/3 of the total membership of that political party. So it was 2/3, and it you can say fulfilled the requirement of 2/3, equal to 2/3 or more than 2/3. So they were not disqualified, and they were able to, by splitting and merging with another political party, they were able to form the government. So this was the case of Arunachal Pradesh, and it came under the exception, and this was the reason that why they were not disqualified. But let me give you another example, and by citing another provision. The next provision is that only split is not allowed. Split this earlier, these two provisions, the earlier discussed two provisions were in the category of split and merge. Now we will talk about only split. Only split is not allowed. If you split from your parent political party, you shall stand disqualified. So only split is not allowed. Suppose there is a political party A, and it has 20 members in the house, and suppose 30 members are there, and 20 members, they decide to leave this political party A, and they form another faction, that is A star. They don't merge with another political party, suppose X. They do not merge with another political party. They simply come out of this original political party, parent political party, and they form another political party, suppose A star. So this is a case of split, and only split is not allowed. So this is not allowed under anti-defection law. And all these members who have split from their original political party, parent political party, they shall stand disqualified. So all these 20 members shall stand disqualified. And you know that what happened in Tamil Nadu? So you know that in Tamil Nadu, Mrs. J. Jayalalitha, late Mrs. J. Jayalalitha was the chief minister. J. Jayalalitha, but after her demise, her death, what happened? His party, called All India Anna Dramukh Munnetra Kashagam, AIADMK. So her political party, AIADMK, the members of her political party, they split in two factions. Okay, so one led by O. Pannirselvam, and one led by her own younger sister, called you can say Chinnamma, and Sasikala. So she was Sasikala. So there was her younger sister called Sasikala. Sasikala is also called Chinnamma. You know that Jayalalitha was called Amma, but this Sasikala is called Chinnamma. So another faction was led by Sasikala, and when this party, the members of this political party, the legislators of this political party split into two factions, they were disqualified. So the splitted faction was disqualified, and there was again election. So this was the thing, because there was only split, there was no merging. So only there was a split, there was no merger, so they were disqualified under anti-defection law. So these are the things that we have to remember. Okay, that only split is not allowed, but split and merge is allowed, and that too if it is equal to or more than 2/3, of the total members of the political party, or total strength of the political party in the house. So this is the thing. So these are the provisions of anti-defection law. So what we have discussed till now, what we have discussed till now? We have discussed first the history part of the anti-defection law. Second, we have discussed the need. And third, we have discussed the provisions. What are the provisions of anti-defection law? I hope these three things are clear to you. Are these three things what we have discussed till now clear?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. So let's now come to the fourth part. The fourth topic that we have to discuss in anti-defection law is the process. And what process? The process of disqualification under anti-defection law. Anti-defection law. So what is the process of disqualification under anti-defection law? We know that the process of disqualification under the Constitution, under the grounds mentioned in Constitution and Representatives of the People's Act are different, because here Election Commission conducts an inquiry and it submits a report to the President of India, and President then, you can say, accept that report and disqualifies and removes the member from his membership. So this is the thing, this is the ordinary provision of disqualification, or the process of disqualification under the grounds mentioned in Constitution and mentioned in Representatives of the People's Act. But the power to disqualify the members under anti-defection law is different. How? Here, the power to disqualify the members under anti-defection law has been attributed to the Speaker of the House, Speaker or Chairperson of the House. Speaker, not even Deputy Speaker or Deputy Chairperson, only Speaker and Chairperson. Speaker and Chairperson. Speaker. In case of Lok Sabha and Legislative Assembly, Speaker, and in case of Rajya Sabha or Legislative Council, it is the Chairperson. So Speaker and Chairperson. So Speaker and Chairperson only have the power to decide the matter of disqualification. Have the power to disqualify the members from the House under anti-defection law. Okay, so the power to disqualify the members under anti-defection law solely rests with the Speaker or the Chairperson of the House. Okay, so it is and even there is a provision that even no court of law can go into so let me erase this, give me 5 seconds, let me erase this. Okay, so it says that the power to disqualify the members of their membership under anti-defection law solely rests in the hands of Speaker or the Chairperson. And there is one more provision under anti-defection law, that no court of law can go into the merits and demerits of the decisions of decisions pertaining to, that is related to, pertaining to the disqualification, decisions of the speaker or chairperson, decisions of the speaker or chairperson pertaining to disqualification under anti-defection law. So what do we mean by it? That suppose Mr. X was disqualified by the speaker. Okay, so Mr. X was disqualified by the speaker under anti-defection law. So he cannot say that the speaker is biased and he had decided me wrongly, he had disqualified me wrongly, I'm not liable to be disqualified, and he cannot approach the Supreme Court, or he cannot approach even any court of law in India. So this was the original situation, that the decisions of the speaker or the decisions of the chairperson cannot be challenged. The original position was that under anti-defection law, that the decisions of the speaker or the decisions of the chairperson under in the case of anti-defection law cannot be challenged by any challenged in any court of law. So this was the original position, but this position changed. And what happened? So there was a very curious case that is called Quijotto Holohan versus Jashilu, 1993. In this case, Supreme Court made some important observation. He said that yes, no question can be raised against the intentions of the speaker. It means you cannot challenge the intention of the speaker. That the speaker is functioning by ill will, or you can say malified intent, or the speaker is having a grudge against me. No member can do that. So intentions of the speaker with respect to anti-defection law, that speaker is disqualifying me, no member of a house can challenge or can accuse the speaker of partiality, okay, or partisanship. That speaker is you can say disqualifying me wrongly, and his intention is ill will, his intention is malified. So like that, you cannot do that. So with respect to anti-defection law, especially in the case of anti-defection law, because Supreme Court said that, and Supreme Court further observed that speaker is the you can say let me read this first. It said that speaker is free from malified intent, that is no intention of the speaker with respect to anti-defection law can be challenged. Okay, so this was the thing, and he is the symbol of, yes, the speaker is, he or she, the speaker is a symbol of propriety, that is, he is the sole proprietor of the house, propriety, and impartiality, that is, he cannot do partisanship, he cannot do any wrong while in the floor of the house. So impartiality, propriety and impartiality. So this was the observation made in favor of the speaker. And again, Supreme Court made some provisions with respect to against the power of speaker also. So this was in favor of the speaker. But what was the provision that was against the speaker? The Supreme Court said that what we are saying, you are saying that under anti-defection law, okay, there can be no challenge. What are you talking about? Supreme Court said, what are you talking about? That under anti-defection law, there can be no challenge to the decisions of the speaker. This cannot go on. So there can be no challenge. What was the provision? The provision was that under anti-defection law, there can be no challenge. There can be no challenge to the challenge against. Sorry, challenge against the decisions of the the decisions of the speaker, the decision of the speaker. So this was the provision, original provision, that the decision of the speaker with respect to anti-defection law cannot be challenged in any court of law. This was the original position against the decision of the speaker. But Supreme Court said no, this cannot be there. What Supreme Court said? Supreme Court said that power of judicial review. Okay, in which article power of judicial review has been given to judiciary? The Supreme Court said the power of judicial review is a part of basic structure, and you cannot, and by saying that there can be no challenge of decisions of the speaker with respect to anti-defection law is violating the provision of power of judicial review. Okay, so this cannot happen, and yes, the decisions of the decision of the speaker with respect to anti-defection law can be challenged. Okay, but Supreme Court made one more observation in this. Yes, Supreme Court said that no, the decisions of the speaker also can be challenged, okay, in the court of law. But what Supreme Court said that it can only be challenged after the speaker has decided the matter of anti-defection. So let me tell, Supreme Court further observed in this case, that is Kihoto Holohan versus Jashilu case. In this case, Supreme Court further observed that the decision of the speaker with respect to anti-defection law can be challenged only. So it said that yes, it can be challenged. Earlier the position was that no, it cannot be challenged, but now Supreme Court said yes, it can be challenged, but only after the speaker has taken a decision. After the speaker has taken a decision, speaker has decided the matter, that is, has taken a decision with respect to anti-defection, taken a decision, okay, with respect to disqualification under anti-defection law. So this was the thing, okay. But later, you can say that after 1993, we have said that yes, Supreme Court earlier the position was that the decision of you can say speaker cannot be challenged in any case, but now the position is that yes, it can be challenged, but only after the speaker has taken a decision. But if you talk about the whole provision of anti-defection law, there is nowhere mention of time limit. Nowhere is a time limit mentioned. So no time limit is mentioned. So what type of time limit? That within how many months, how many days, or how many years the speaker should take a decision. So no time limit has been mentioned under anti-defection law. Nowhere is time limit mentioned. Is a time limit is time limit mentioned under anti-defection law, under anti-defection law to bound to compel the speaker to take a decision, So this is a major problem with this law, or with this law, that this law does not provide a time frame or time limit that under which speaker has to take a decision. Sometimes we see that the member should be disqualified, okay, but they are not being disqualified because the speaker is you can say prolonging the matter. He is not taking any decision, and if asked, he says that there is no time limit, that within which time limit I have to take a decision. So I don't think that I can take decision at this time. So sometimes the speaker postpones the decision, and for years, for months, in some cases of 4 years. For example, in case of Andhra Pradesh, the speaker, you can say, postponed the disqualification of a member who had split from his parent political party and joined another political party for nearly, you can say, 5 to 6 years. So this is a major problem, major lacuna in this law. Okay, and Supreme Court has many a times, in many cases, Supreme Court has, you can say, obliged or has asked the Parliament to amend this law and provide a time limit under so that within which speaker has to take a decision, because now speaker is not taking a decision. Earlier the speaker was taking a decision, but what was happening, that his decision cannot be challenged in any court of law. But now you can challenge the decision of the speaker, but the speaker is not deciding the matter, and in some cases speaker is deciding in a haste, and in some cases speaker is not at all deciding the matter. So this is a problem with this law, and there should be a reform. Okay, so let me tell you about tell you a very interesting case. For example, the case of, you can say, there was the case of Karnataka. What happened in Karnataka? It was said that some legislators of Indian National Congress had so-called resigned from their political party, or they had, you can say, split. You can say they had split from the Indian National Congress. Okay, speaker taking the suo motu notice, or taking in a very hasty manner. The speaker, what he did, you know that the Congress and JDS were, Indian National Congress along with the JDS was in the government. Indian National Congress and JDS along with JDS, Janata Dal Secular. So Janata Dal Secular and Indian National Congress had formed a coalition government in Karnataka. Okay. So what happened that when these members, some of the legislators of Indian National Congress, they resigned from their membership of the House, but the speaker did not accept the speaker did not accept the resignation. Speaker did not accept the resignation. Saying that these members have been lured, these members have been poached by the opposition party, that is at the time that was BJP. So it said that the party in power said that these the speaker who was from the, you can say, Congress political party, he said that I will not accept the resignation because these resignations are not voluntary. These resignations are not voluntary. And the Congress political party alleged that these members have been poached. These members have been, you can say, asked by the opposition political party to resign so that the strength of the House may come down and the opposition political party may, you can say, form the government. So this was the thing, this was the allegation. leveled against the opposition party by the ruling party. Okay, so this was the thing. And so the Speaker of the Karnataka Assembly, he did not accept the resignation, but the opposition party said that the Speaker is not taking the decision, and this matter went into the Supreme Court. So this was the thing. But what happened in Andhra? So this was here the Speaker is taking a decision in very hasty manner. Okay, is not taking taking a decision in very hasty manner, and he decided that I will not accept the resignation. And this was right also. Why this was right? Because it is the discretionary power of the speaker. He may accept the resignation of a member of a house, or he may not accept, and no one can ask him to accept the decision. That is, the resignation letter of a member of a house is not binding on the speaker to accept. If he feels that this resignation is not voluntary, this resignation is forced, that is, this resignation has been taken by force, then speaker may decide not to accept the resignation. So and the speaker at the time said that these members have been poached, these members have been bought, these members have been their resignation is not voluntary, and their resignation is not is forced by Sorsian. So I am not going to accept the resignation. But this matter went into Supreme Court, and Supreme Court decided that no, you cannot go on. You can say postponing their resignation. Okay, because the members say that we have resigned out of our own, we are not coerced, and then ultimately these members were resigned, and then the opposition party was able to form the government. So this was the thing. But what happened in Andhra Pradesh? Let me give another curious case with respect to this decision of the speaker in Andhra Pradesh. What happened in Andhra Pradesh? That in Andhra Pradesh Legislative Assembly, Andhra Pradesh Legislative Assembly. Okay, you know that in Andhra Pradesh Legislative Assembly, sorry, not in Andhra Pradesh, it is Telangana. So it was the case of Telangana Legislative Assembly, not Andhra Pradesh. Telangana Legislative Assembly, because it is the case after the bifurcation of Andhra Pradesh. So Telangana Legislative Assembly. What happened? You know that in Telangana there is a ruling party is the TRS, Telugu Rashtra Samiti, led by K. Chandrasekhar Rao. K. Chandrasekhar Rao. Okay, and the opposition party is, you can say, the name of the opposition party is the N. Chandran Babu Naidu's party, Telugu Desam party, so TDP. The opposition party is TDP. Okay, so you know that after 2014, when Andhra Pradesh was bifurcated, and when the elections were held after the bifurcation in Telangana, when Telangana came into being. Okay, so when the elections were held, TRS got a very good majority. You can say sweeping majority, clear-cut majority and sweeping majority. What happened? One of the MLA, and TDP was the second party. Okay, so there was an TDP MLA. So there was a single TDP MLA. Okay, what did this TDP MLA? What TRS did? TRS appointed this TDP MLA that was from the opposition political party. TRS, the ruling political party, appointed him a minister. And you know that when Minister, how can a member of legislative assembly or legislator from a opposition political party accept the post of minister in a ruling political party? So if he does that, it means that he has resigned from his, you can say, membership of the house. How you can contest the election on the ticket of another political party, and you can go on to become the minister of another political party without coalition, without forming, you can say, alliance. So this happened. So ideally, this TDP MLA should have been disqualified under anti-defection law, because he had virtually resigned from his political party and joined the ruling political party. He was from opposition, but he had now accepted the post of minister in the ruling political party. Okay, so ideally he should have been disqualified. But what happened that the chairperson or chairman, sorry, the speaker of the Telangana Legislative Assembly, one minute, give me 5 seconds. The pen is not working properly. Okay, so what the speaker did, speaker of the Telangana Legislative Assembly, what he did, speaker, he did not disqualify. He took no decision on the disqualification matters of this TDP MLA. So he took no decision, and this matter, you can say, went on for years. And this TDP MLA, who had accepted the, you can say, post of minister under, you can say, the ruling political party, though he was from the opposition, but he had, and he went on to remain the minister for a very long time. And this was the thing, when this matter went into the court was helpless, because there is no time limit mentioned that within this time frame the speaker should take a decision. Okay, so even judiciary was helpless, and this member went on to remain the minister for many years, and ultimately he concluded, you can say, completed his tenure as a TDP MLA, but a minister under the ruling political party, that was another political party. So this was the irony, this was the paradox, and this is the paradox, or this is the irony that is going on in our political circles even today. So there are some, you can say, reforms required in the anti-defection law, and these are the major provisions under anti-defection law that you have to remember. So now I hope you understood these things.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so now let's come to this thing, the next thing that we have to talk about. So what we have talked the need of the history, the need, the provisions, the power of the speaker. Okay, and one case, Kyoto Holohan versus Jashilu case. Okay, and what are the lacunae in the anti-defection law? That is, we have talked about the criticism. We have also talked about the criticism of this law. So what is the major criticism of this law? The major criticism of this law is that this law, that is anti-defection law, does not provide any time limit within which the speaker has to take a decision. Speaker has to take a decision with respect to disqualification matters. So what is the way forward, or what is the need? The need or the way forward is, the conclusion is, the way forward is that there should be a time limit, there should be an amendment to this anti-defection law, and there should be a time limit provided, so that within which the speaker had to take a decision. So this can be the way forward, that there should be a time limit under anti-defection law, that within which the speaker has to take a decision, and if the speaker does not take a decision, then Supreme Court the court should be given a power, the jurisdiction of the court should be extended, in this matter also, anti-defection law also, so that court can take a decision what it thinks fit. So under anti-defection law. So this is the thing that you have to remember. So now this is all about anti-defection law. I hope it is clear to you.
Yes, sir, definitely.
Okay. Now let's talk about the next thing. The next thing that we have to talk about is, let me take a new slide. 1 minute.
Next is right to speaker chairperson.
What we have discussed? We have discussed the introductory part. We have discussed
Yes.
the provisions. We have discussed the process of disqualification and how this process of disqualification of legislators, how the process of disqualification of legislators is different under anti-defection law from the disqualification under Constitution and Representatives of People's Act. Now we have discussed the rights of a speaker or the chairperson. We have discussed the criticism and conduct of the speaker, that how sometimes the speaker also, though he is the symbol of impropriety and impartiality, but despite these things, these comments by the Supreme Court, speaker sometimes acts in a very partisan manner, and he acts as per the requirement of the ruling political party or the majority political party. And then there is a we have discussed the Kyoto Holohan cases also. And then we have discussed the Supreme Court's recent observation, that Supreme Court had observed that we require amendment in you can say anti-defection law, so that under that amendment there should be a time limit within which the speaker had to take a decision, and there should be the jurisdiction of the court should be extended to in the matters of anti-defection law also, so that if the speaker does not take a decision, then Supreme Court or the courts can have their own way. So this is the thing that we have to know about anti-defection law. And remember, this anti-defection law is very important. Why it is important? Because of the political drama that happened in, you can say, first it started in, you can say, Arunachal Pradesh. Then in, you can say, we saw the same political drama in Uttarakhand also. Then we saw the same political drama in Goa also. Then we saw in Karnataka. Then we saw in Madhya Pradesh. Then we saw in, you can say, now we are witnessing the same type of political drama, somewhat same type of political drama in Rajasthan also. And due to these political dramas, due to these political crises, this anti-defection law becomes very important for the sake of, you can say, UPSC examination, and that you have to remember. And this is enough that you have to remember about anti-defection law. Now, so we have discussed what? We have discussed in whole, what we have discussed? We have discussed first the need of the parliament, the need or significance of parliament. In a whole, we have discussed the need and significance of parliament. We are discussing the parliament chapter. So we have discussed the need and significance of parliament. We have discussed the characteristics of the parliament, characteristics. We have discussed the rules of the parliament. We have discussed the, you can say, constitution of the parliament, that is you can say composition of parliament. Here constitution means composition of parliament. Okay, in composition we are discussing Rajya Sabha, and now we have discussed under Rajya Sabha we have discussed its need. Okay, we have discussed its composition. We have discussed it, the qualification of members. We have discussed their manner of election. Manner of election. We have discussed the disqualification matters, the grounds of disqualification and disqualification. Though this disqualification matter is not related to only Rajya Sabha, this disqualification, the provisions of disqualification that we have talked about are applicable to all the houses, whether Rajya Sabha, Lok Sabha, State Legislative Assembly, because the provisions are the same. Okay, so disqualification matters also we have discussed. Disqualification. Okay, now what we have to discuss, and disqualification there too under three. First, under the constitution, under representatives of the people's act, and under anti-defection law. So we have discussed all these things. Now the next thing that we have to discuss with respect to Rajya Sabha, or in the matters of Rajya Sabha, is special powers of Rajya Sabha. Special powers of Rajya Sabha. So we have to discuss the special powers of Rajya Sabha. This is the next topic that we have to discuss in this series. So let's talk about the special powers of Rajya Sabha. The special powers of Rajya Sabha. So what are the special powers that are only available with the Rajya Sabha, not with the Lok Sabha or not with the state legislative assemblies? So the first special power of Rajya Sabha is under Article 312, that is 312 of the Constitution. So the first special power of Rajya Sabha is under Article 312. Article 312, that is 312. What does Article 312 say? Article 312 provides special powers to Rajya Sabha. Special power to Rajya Sabha. And what type of special power? The special power, you know that there are three lists. There are three lists. Under Article 312 provides that, the special power of Rajya Sabha, that Rajya Sabha by passing a special resolution or a resolution by special majority, can create another All India service. So to create a new All India service, the power to create a new All India service only lies with the Rajya Sabha. Lok Sabha cannot create by itself a new All India service. The power to create a new All India service only lies with the Rajya Sabha, that too under Article 312. What is the process of creation of a new All India service? That Rajya Sabha shall pass a resolution with this, in this regard, shall pass a resolution by special majority. That is majority of more than 2/3 of the members present and voting. Okay, so this is special majority. We have talked about different types of majorities in our earlier lectures, like what is ordinary majority or simple majority, what is absolute majority, what is, you can say, effective majority, what is the special majority, what is special majority type 1, type 2, type 3. So these type of majorities we have talked about. Okay, we will talk about again in some other lectures, but let me tell you that to create a new All India service, only Rajya Sabha has been given the power, and Rajya Sabha to create a new All India service may pass a resolution by special majority, and then the bill will move to Lok Sabha, and Lok Sabha will simply agree with this bill. That is, here agree means by simple majority. If Lok Sabha also by simple majority gives the assent, then a new All India service can be created. Okay, but what are the All India services? You know that in India at present there are three All India service. One is IAS, Indian Administrative Service. One is IPS, Indian Police Service, and one is IFOS, Indian Forest Service, not Foreign Service, because Indian Foreign Service, that is IFS, is central service. It is not All India service, it is a central service. Like IES, Indian Economic Service, like RS, Indian Internal Revenue Service. So like these, IFS is a central service. It is not an all India service. But IFS, that is IFOS, that is Indian Forest Service, is an all India service. So in the same manner, if Rajya Sabha passes a resolution by special majority and it gives assent that yes, Parliament can create a new all India service, then it can be created. Otherwise, it cannot be created by simply by passing a cabinet decision or by, you can say, taking the note of Lok Sabha, or Lok Sabha cannot do that. Only it can be done by a resolution passed by Rajya Sabha, that too by a special majority. Why Rajya Sabha has been given this power? What is the reason that Rajya Sabha has been given the power to create? Only Rajya Sabha has been given the power to create an all India service. You know that this all India service in, you can say, individuals, or this concept of all India service, this concept of all India service, it violates federalism, or we cannot say violate federalism, because if it may have violated, then obviously under judicial review it may have been struck down by the Supreme Court, or it had been declared unconstitutional. But somewhat it compromises federalism. So why this concept of all India services compromise federalism or federal principles in India? Federalism, because who are these all India service? They are appointed by the central government. That is the union government. But they function in state governments, under state governments. Though they are appointed, their salary is decided by the union government, they are appointed by the union government, their term of service is decided by the union government, but they function in the states, that is under the state government. So what happens? You know that these all India service individuals, what they do, they function as, though they function under the state government, but they function as eyes and ears of central government. Though they are the employee of the state government, they are working under the state government, but they are working as an eyes and ears of central government. And you know that in India we have federalism, we have federal polity, where there is dual government, one at the central level and one at the state level. So how center can send you can say officials to state government, that to you can say somewhat unwillingly. State governments are not you can say ready to accept these persons, but they are obliged to you can say respect the decisions of the central government. And these persons, these all India service individuals, they function as eyes and ears of the central government under the state government. And this is the thing that this violates the principle of federalism somewhat, or compromises somewhat the principle of federalism. And so this is the reason that why state, and you know that Rajya Sabha is the, you can say, upper chamber, and it represents the states at the central level. So Rajya Sabha is the representative of states at the central level, and this is the reason why to create a new all India service, the power to create a new all India service has been given to Rajya Sabha. So for today it is enough. We'll meet in the next class. Thank you. Have a good night, because the laptop is not charged. Okay.
Okay, sir, no problem.